everybody. Welcome to this month of Staffing Monthly. I am super excited to be here. We are trying to solve, in my opinion, what is the most pressing challenge facing the staffing industry right now, and that is how do we get more and better candidates? It seems like we just need more candidates, better candidates to solve all of the problems. And so this month, I am going out scouring the entire globe looking for experts to help answer that question for you. And the expert I have with you here today is somebody that I am thoroughly impressed with. This is not just somebody that understands the staffing game. They're a pioneer. I actually have Callie with recruitmentmarketing.com here with me today, and she is among the early pioneers of recruitment marketing, which is the most emergent strategy for the staffing industry to drive candidates for you today. But even in addition to that, she's actually one of the early architects of programmatic job ad management, which is something we spoke in depth about last month. And she's actually been there, done that, managed over $1 billion with a B for big time, over $1 billion worth of marketing spend, doing exactly what we're going to be here talking about today in recruitment marketing. So, Julie, I'm excited to have you here today. Thank you for being a part of this. And yeah, let's get fired up. Why don't you share something you want to share with the audience just about you that might be unique, that's going to help them remember you?
Well, thank you, Dan, for that introduction. One thing I'd say that I'm really proud of is that $1 billion is not my money. It's other people's money. And I'm really grateful that I've had the opportunity to have so much trust that people have given me that to be able to explore and experiment to determine the best path to invest. I love doing recruitment marketing. I honestly love marketing. I love the storytelling that's in it, but I love doing it for recruitment because I think that people find a lot of purpose in their work. So if you can do great storytelling that helps people understand the type of work and the purpose of the work, you're helping people find purpose. And that's why I really enjoy what I do.
I love that. I love that about you. And I know I've got the big question, but something you just said, I think maybe is a good pre-question for those that might not be completely familiar. So recruitment marketing, it's a newer buzzword in the industry. So why don't you just super succinctly break down what that means to you and maybe what it should mean to staffing executives and leaders out there?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Recruitment marketing, right? It sounds so easy to understand that, yet it's a very different thing in both capacities. It's not recruitment and it's not marketing. It's a combination of both. Marketing is communication. And that is, what do you say? How do you make it look? And where do you put that message so that you can connect with the right audience? Well, we need that in recruitment, right? We need to reach job seekers. We need to reach candidates. And there are all different types of candidates that have different interests. They're in different places based on who they are and what their skills are. And we're trying to reach them in recruitment to get the right people in the right role. But that's exactly where marketing comes in as a benefit. How do you tell the story? How do you find the audience? How do you connect with the right people to bring in the right talent that you need? Because are you looking for just anyone or are you looking for the right person? Well, the message and the media that you're going to use is going to allow you to connect with those people.
Nailed it. Nailed it. You said it way better than I do, but I literally just delivered a talk to a local group of HR professionals on that piece right there, explaining that when you're doing recruitment, it truly is fundamentally marketing because you're trying to get a target audience to take a specific action. And in order to be successful in that, you need to know who is your target audience and be very clear on who they are, because who they are is going to influence the message, what you say to them to get them to take action, and the medium in which you say it and where you say it. And so I think you nailed that there. I think that's really a solid understanding for our viewers. So,
and I would just add to what you said right there is that recruiters have always been doing marketing, always.
Yeah.
Every conversation you have with a candidate trying to convince them why they should accept the role is marketing. You are trying to come up with value proposition, and you are doing it. You are finding the right words to say. You are experimenting with your messaging to determine what works and not works and refining it. So recruiters have always been doing marketing, whether they knew it or not, in the words that were coming out of their mouth. The difference of what has evolved so much in our industry, why recruitment marketing is taking off so much in the last decade, is the evolution of the space.
Yeah.
It is no longer run a small little ad in a newspaper or use the telephone as your primary method to build a talent pipeline. We've introduced technology, we've introduced online media, we've introduced really advanced targeting and segmentation and use of video and mobile devices. There has been so much complexity added to how we need to communicate these messages. That's where recruitment marketing has really grown as a whole industry, because it's gone from less one-on-one connection to large-scale technology solutions and automation.
And that's true. And I want to point out something too, that, so you're right, that's where it has gone. And it's really the fault of like the Amazons and the Facebooks that have really pushed technology in a way that's changed consumer behavior, is what they call it, but the behavior of people in the way that we interact online. And because of that, the staffing industry is going to be sort of forced to keep up. Because if you want to connect with the people out there, you have to meet them where they're at, and you have to engage with them based on the way they want to be engaged with. And because of social media and because of e-commerce and because of the way the world has changed, people prefer to be connected with different ways. But I don't want to scare, I mean, what Julie just said is 100% accurate, but I don't want to scare you away, viewer, that's looking at this being, oh my gosh, this is too much, this is overwhelming. It doesn't have to be. There are very simple steps that you can take to benefit from recruitment marketing. There's a very easy path into it to leverage, which really is where we're going to go next when we ask the big question of the month. And that is, Julie, all of our viewers out there, they need more and better candidates. So from your perspective, where do they find them? How do they get them?
More and better candidates. I believe the truth is, what is the right? What is the ideal? I would suggest to anyone, sit down and really think about, who is that ideal candidate? Who are they? Where are they? What are they doing now? What do they love? What do they not like? If you can really put yourselves in the shoes of that person, you can now start to think about, where's my best place to find them? If you know who you really want, right? Because it's not about getting 100 of the wrong people, right? It's about getting that one right one. So who is the one right one, and where are they now? Right? You have to fish where the fish are, right? That's an old saying, but the best advice I could ever give anyone.
That's true.
Where are they? And how can you take advantage of both what I would call a hunting and a fishing strategy? You can fish. Now, fishing is going out and putting your job up on a job site and waiting for fish to bite on that line to see if they're the right one. Hunting is saying, I know exactly what I want. I'm going right to the best place to find it, and I'm going after it. And that's a very different approach. If you're going to go and do outreach, right? If you're going out into the world to advertise, I really believe in what I would call the 4 pillars of recruitment advertising. And you don't have to have large budgets to do this, but you do need to take a path of understanding why you would do any of these things. I always start with branding, and branding is a very important story, especially in staffing, because if you don't have a story of why they should talk to you, people are going to research your company when they're looking at your job postings. You're probably not putting your job posting up with the name of the company that you're looking to make the placement for. So if you're advertising, you need a story of when they look you up, who are you? Because you don't have the employer's story. When they're researching who you are as a company, you are a staffing company. So they're going to look at you and say, oh, do I want to work for the staffing company? they might not understand the connection that you're working for making a placement. So make sure you have a story for candidates to learn more about you, that you are a path to their future at the right role. So make sure there's a story there for the brand that you are, that speaks to the job seeker audience. I see a lot of staffing companies tell a great story to the employer, why they can help find the right candidate. But what about the candidate? You're going to interact with more candidates than you probably will employers. So make sure there's a story that speaks to that audience, because they're going to look you up. And they're
It's true. It's true. And to that point, the more candidates that you can engage, the easier it is, the more desirable you are to the employer side of it. And one thing I want to share, I had a really good friend that is in branding, marketing. That's all she does. She's quite a boss in the space. And she shared with me what her definition of branding was once. And I thought it was the most simple thing, and people out there know me. I'm super simple. I like simple solutions. So I asked, I was like, what is branding? What's marketing? What's branding? What's advertising? I feel like I use those words interchangeably at that point in my life. And she goes, advertising is something that you can do. Marketing is something that you can do. Branding is not. And I was like, what do you mean? But very contrarian. And she goes, your brand is simply put what people say about you when someone else asks them about you. I'm like, and I had to get my head around that. I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, let's just say you have some HR professionals and they're networking at an event where you're not at. And one HR professional says, hey, I'm hiring and I'm thinking about using Acme Staffing. What do you know about them? However that person responds about Acme Staffing is your brand. And I'm like, wow. I was like, that is so true. And it's so true with the job seekers, right? Like, so whatever, if someone's like, hey, I'm looking for a job, should I go to a temp agency or an employment agency? And someone says, oh, you got to go to Acme Staffing because they really treat you like human beings. They've got great opportunities over there. You've got your brand.
Yes, exactly. I love how you shared that. It's a great interpretation of it. And you can't control what people are saying about you when you are not in the room, but
It's
you
true.
can influence it.
You can influence it through advertising and marketing and being consistent in your messaging if you're deliberate and intentional about what that messaging is, right?
Yeah, the brand is, I would say from the perspective that you can control, the brand is the story and the experience that you deliver.
That's right.
That is something you can control. You can control that you treat people well. You can control a story that you care. That is something you can control. Whether people feel, perceive, and share that story on is really the success of how much you can deliver on that promise.
It's true. And what's fascinating for me about branding specifically is that your brand can actually be very different depending on the audience out there. So here's an example that might be a little bit relevant. So for me, I originate in the Northeast, so I'm a Dunkin' guy, right? There's a lot of people out there, West Coasters, Pacific Northwest, they're Starbucks people, right? But so let's talk about Starbucks for a second. When I go into Starbucks, the brand that I have, too many options. It's just too complicated. Like I just want coffee in a cup, right? So for me, it's like, it's just too complicated as Starbucks, right? But there's other people that are like, hey, this is happiness in a cup. I can get my coffee exactly the way that I want it. There's handcrafted baristas that will, that can make exactly what you want. And that's a brand that they had to that specific audience. That's their tribe. But then a different audience segment that's been in the news a lot lately, particularly in the Northeast, is, hey, we don't feel represented as an employee group. We want to unionize. We want to do those things. So they have a different brand about the company, so you have to be aware of, one, who's your most important audience and how do you influence the brand to have them saying the right thing about you. So you don't get employees that have loved the company forever now saying, we don't love you so much, we want to unionize. Or maybe even people like me, I'm not their target market, but so I think it's an important thing about branding is you can have different brands out there in the marketplace. So understanding who your target person is and the right message you want to influence them with, so they're telling the story or retelling the story that you want them to, it's important, right?
Yes. And the story of your brand and the value that you're going to bring for staffing as well is something that you want to live, because that candidate may not be the right one today for the specific role that you're working on, but you got that far with them. Maybe there's something else. Maybe a new rec lands on your desk next week. Maybe they know 10 other people that are also a good fit. You want to make sure that the stories that you're sharing and the messaging lives with them, because it's going to make an impact on things in marketing to, right, of course, bring people to the table, but then it also evangelizes itself. And that has everything to do with the experience that you give them working with you, right? You can monetize the potential of one contact many, many times. It's just how well and effectively you do it. And I mean, branding, yes, of course, it's used in the outbound to bring people in, but also everywhere in your process. The scripts that you use to talk to people, the follow-up in the emails that you send them, all of it. It's all about your experience and the messaging you're delivering it. So you need that. And do you need to go hire an expensive agency to do that? No. You just need to put in the time and the effort and put some creativity behind that. Really take yourself out of the process of like, what do you need to get done? And think about the candidate. What are they trying to do? What do they care about? What does this feel like to them? Making them fill out 17 pages of a form before I've even got on a phone call with them. How does that feel? So if you start to really take the perspective of the candidate and have empathy for that, you're going to create experiences that are different than what they're experiencing from others in the market. Some, for example, who may be too big and they are treating people like they're an assembly line. That can be a competitive advantage for a smaller mid-sized staffing company, because if you can create more humanized experiences that feel better to the candidate, you're going to have a competitive advantage. So
I love it.
But
I love it.
Always start with brand, because it's something anybody can achieve just through empathy.
It's true. So pillar one. So we've got this. If you're taking notes out there, viewers, pillar one is the brand. So we start before the pillars. We talked about really identify who your candidate is. Think about how they're going to want to be connected with. And I'm sure Julie's going to circle back around a little bit on it. But brand is pillar one, and your actionable insight is your brand is the story that you want your candidates telling about your agency that are going to drive more candidates to you. So if you want to leverage brand to solve that problem of the candidate shortage, be deliberate in that story and how they're experiencing your agency, because you want them to be going up like, I had an amazing experience. I went and I talked to Acme Staffing and I worked with Julie and she's incredible. You got to go see her. And every time that one of your candidates, and maybe they're working for you or not, hears of anyone that's looking for a job, if they had a great experience with you, they're going to refer them to your agency. Right? That's the power of the first pillar of recruitment, marketing, and branding. And that's what I took out of that. So but what's pillar two? Let's start building this house.
Well, pillar two has everything to do with jobs, right? Jobs are a real thing. They're a transactional thing. You're going to have jobs and you're going to want to get them out there.
Yeah. It's pretty important.
Jobs is you're capturing the active job seeker. Now, I believe that if you're working on a budget, the best way to do this is to use, there's so many job advertising solutions out there, but find one where you can control performance. Stay away from the post and pray, because
What do you mean by that? Post and pray? What do you mean by that?
So post and pray. There are a lot of models out there to advertise jobs that say, give us $200 and we'll put your job up.
Okay.
Not really giving you a promise of anything. So you're giving them the $200 and you're posting the job up on a website and you're going to pray that you're going to get something from it. So that's where the post and pray term comes from, because you're paying with no guarantee of anything back.
So stay away. So stay away from that. We're going to stay away from post and pray.
I would say, unless you have data to prove that and predict that something is going to come out of that, I would stay away from it. Because what you're doing is you're taking your budget for that and all of your eggs and you're putting it in one basket and you're going on hope. So unless you have data that's evidence that it's going to work for you, I would avoid it.
So I know what data I would track because I'm a data geek. Like I love this. But what data would you track to make sure that post and pray maybe is a viable part of the job strategy?
Well, application, right? First, you want to look to see, am I getting click activity? Are people even looking at it? If you go into a post and pray model and nobody's even looking at it, then what did you just pay for?
Just threw the money away, right out the window.
You bought a billboard in the middle of the woods. Nobody's seeing it. Nobody's looking at it. So you didn't even get any exposure. So the views matter because that goes to say how many people have looked at it. But the application, right? Isn't that what you're looking for? Either an application or a lead that comes out of it that you can follow out of. That's showing you that you got some activity associated with. But that might not even be enough, right? Because they offer these really easy apply methods and people are just click, 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 and they're sending applications and you've got an inbox full of 50 people you need to follow up with and not a single one of them is going to proceed any further. So you do want to establish what your quality metric is for that and then measure a little down past the application to determine would I even want to call them back. So that is an indicator of whether or not there's value coming out of that post and pray.
Awesome. Awesome.
There's a lot of models out there. So this evolution of programmatic advertising, which you were mentioning, you talked about with your audience previously, just came in the last 10 years. I was part of the team that helped build out the first analytics and programmatic platform.
Thank you.
That controls distribution. Because no recruiter should ever have to sit down and say, wow, look at all these job sites. Which one should I post this job to?
What do you mean? Recruiters have all sorts of time. Every recruiter I know is looking for something else to do.
Oh, it's painful. But why? Why should you have to think about that? We have enough data that we've established over time to know, based on location, based on job type, what sources provide the best outcomes for this. Just let the data do it for you. It has more information than you probably do on where these candidates come from. Well, so that this is where programmatic advertising is so valuable. You take out all the guesswork. Recruiting is the great example here. You put the jobs into the engine, it distributes it to multiple job sites based on every single job's individually unique attributes, targeting it to the right type of candidate and where they are. So automate that. Take that time back. You should not waste that time.
So that's true. So you said the name, but you said it so fast to an audience that might not be familiar. So you said, who is a great example of being that engine?
A great example of that is the industry founder, which first ever to introduce the solution to the industry was Recruitix, and that's recruitment and analytics brought together, making Recruitix.
Yeah, and you were a senior leader, C-suite there for a number of time before coming out to evangelize recruitment marketing for the industry. So awesome. I didn't mean to interrupt, but you breezed by that so quick, and I'm like, I think that's a piece that our people are going to want to know. Like, what did she say there? So,
well, this transitions into the next pillar, because I'll tell you, programmatic advertising is fantastic solution to help you automate your job posting. I mean, put your job up and then automate where it goes. But that is great for reaching the active job seekers.
Right.
They're looking for jobs. They're searching for jobs. They're applying for jobs. Now, that media will get you great return, especially in pay for performance, because you only pay if someone clicks or applies. So you're guaranteed activity or you don't pay anything. That's great.
Right? Yeah, I like that.
But what if they don't click? And what if they don't apply? This is where many people get stuck. Right? If you put all of your eggs in just that basket, truth is that data that comes out, programmatic advertising, is going to inform you where your gaps are. It's going to tell you, uh-oh, nobody's clicking, nobody's applying. Good news, you're not paying anything, but bad news, you're probably not going to get a placement either because you found a gap.
So are you meaning to tell me that there are good candidates that see my job but don't apply to
it? Yes. So if you're a good persona, work and doing on your brand and how you want to reach, what stories you want to tell. You're doing work on that job description, on that job title to make sure those things perform better, because that's something you can control, right? But truth is, there may just not be enough people out there searching for that job. You might not be reaching the audience because they're not out there, or they don't understand the job. They don't understand the language of the job. It's not connecting with the active job seeker audience.
So messaging or meeting could be a little off there.
Something could be wrong, but there's usually a reason why you're not getting activity, right? If you're not getting activity, go look and say, can I do something to improve the activity on performance advertising? But I'll tell you, I've been doing this for a long time. There are absolutely pockets out there right now where there are not people searching and applying for jobs in certain titles and certain locations. There's talent gaps and there's heavy competition. So if you can't perform in the active job speaker space, then you got to get creative and start targeting that audience. This is different, right?
All right, tell me more. Hit me with it.
We're moving into another pillar now.
All right, pillar 3.
We were talking about programmatic advertising or job distribution, job boards. Now we're moving into targeted advertising.
All right, so really quick then. So then my takeaway from pillar 2, the job distribution is, 1, use data and technology to be better prepared to distribute your jobs to more effective sources. So the spend that you would have can be more targeted to drive more people back into your candidate funnel. So that's how pillar 2 is going to solve the problem of how do I get more and better candidates. It's going to help you reach those more and better candidates and send them back to you. So now that's that takeaway. And now we're going to move into pillar 3, which is more targeted to find those talent gaps. And Julie's going to lay down how to use pillar 3 to get us more and better candidates, right?
Yes. And pillar 3, targeted advertising. You really have everything at your disposal that any marketer doing work in the e-commerce space or any other role in marketing has, right? We're talking about the great frontier of all the possibilities. And in truth, I believe there's over 7,000 potential sources and media that you can use in this area. So this is where it really gets like, well, where do I start? Right?
That was you said 7,000. That was like exactly what was going on in my head. Well, how do I know where to go?
Well, I'll give you some tips here on this. Google and Facebook cover about 80% of the planet. So
good place to start
with. Two to start with, but that does not mean that those are the only things you can use. There is a wide area of creative opportunities to target audience. The important thing to do is remember, who are you trying to get, right? If they're in a very specific location, then you don't need a national commercial, right? You need to figure out, how am I going to get in front of the people in that location? Now think about what skills they need to have. Where would people with these skills in this location be? Are they on a bus, right? Am I hiring for a big contract where I have to hire 50 people to place a role in one organization? Are they all on a bus? Can I put up a really inexpensive banner on the bus to get them to text me to be interested in a role? Like, you can be really creative. You could go
maybe you can, yeah.
You could go
or at the bus stop or benches. Yeah, absolutely.
Do a session on help people in the local area, advise them, counsel them, find out, meet people. Like, you can get so creative. But with targeted, it requires one foundational piece: know who you're looking for, and then go get in front of them, whether it be a commercial or just showing up, at an event where you think they might be. That's how you can get to really be connected with the ideal person. But targeted advertising, there's such a wide range of opportunity here. So much of the media allows you to really focus your advertising into exactly what you're looking for. But in the job space, I put a big star up. You can't just grab any marketer and say, great, run me your average Facebook campaign, because in the recruitment you do have compliance. And there is a lot of transformation that's happened over the past few years where both Google and Facebook and many of others are getting into the space and saying, all right, we understand now that job advertisement is different and you have to take a different path to advertise like that to make sure you're being inclusive in your practices. But I'll give you this one on targeted advertising. Where some things start to cross into the realm of telling stories of a brand, but yet still being targeted, remember who your audience is. I cannot believe how many people I'm seeing have success on TikTok right now.
I'm sure.
I'm probably big people be like, what? I'm not ready to be on TikTok. But
TikTok is the perfect platform for the consumer of the day.
It requires being a creator. You go in and you create. You got to be brave. You got to make those videos. You be a creator to bring something that speaks to the audience. Be funny. Are you tired of filling out all these applications and jobs and all over and recruiters didn't go back to you? I can help you. Reach out to me. They're going to.
It's true. It's true. So, but think about this. So there's two things. One, the thing I love about the third pillar targeting is it's still pretty much a blue ocean as far as staffing goes, because the vast majority of agencies aren't playing here yet. They haven't really there's some out there, but they're just not there yet with the creative outlets and getting very targeted. So if you want to get ahead and capture the candidates in those pockets that Julie's talking about, like this is a great one to be looking at. And don't be overwhelmed by TikTok or social media in general. When you say you got to be a creator, it doesn't mean you have to truly create something that's different than yourself. If you're watching this and you're a staffing professional, I promise you, you're unique in some way that's interesting and you have skills and experience and value that somebody out there wants to hear about. Your candidates want to hear about it. And trust me, your job might seem not interesting to you because you deal with it every day on the ups and downs, but most people don't. Candidates would love to have a look in and they would love to see the personality behind the recruiters out there, so don't be afraid to pick that phone up and just be yourself. You don't necessarily have to create something that's not you. Just be you. So you don't need to be a creator. You need a be-ator. I just made a word. I made up a word.
That's great. But you're right. You're touching on a point. Be authentic.
Yes.
It has changed. It is not about influencers anymore. You don't need to be a Kardashian to be successful here.
Thank God.
Look at yeah, right. But authenticity is what people are looking for. They want to see it real. This is in what's going on here. This is an advantage. So many big brands are afraid, right, to step into this, some of these outer lines of things that are new because they're not quite sure how can they control it, how can they make sure that it stays on their large enterprise branding. That's where being small is a huge advantage. You don't have all that red tape. You can be creative, you can give it a try, and they're not there yet. They are not controlling this media yet, so it's a great opportunity to get an advantage.
It's true. Right now. It's a lot easier to be human, and that being human will win the game right now.
Yes, and I will tell you, TikTok has taken off in all kinds of directions that are very disruptive into recruitment marketing. We've got salary transparency taking place all over TikTok. It's like Glassdoor gone wild. So
that's the soundbite right there.
So that's TikTok. Definitely right now, people are using it to research companies, to research opportunities.
Yeah.
And candidates even advertising themselves out there.
Yeah.
So it's a new medium, but it's just one of many. There's so many out there. Try them. Be creative, be bold, and be brave.
Love it. Love it. So pillar 3, be targeted, be intentional, know your audience and who you're talking to, but then think about ways that you can advertise to them and tell your story to them that might not just be through a job board, right? Think about where's my audience, my ideal candidate going to see this? Are they going to be commuting on a bus to work? Are they taking the subway? Are they going to be sitting at a bus stop? Or, do they go to the ball game, or do they go to the local hockey rink, or wherever wherever those eyeballs are going to be at? That's where you should be too. And right now, most agencies, ever since the classified ad went away and it went online, most agencies forgot how to be creative. So this becomes that blue ocean again for you out there, staffing professionals, to get creative and look for new ways to hit those targeted audiences, right?
Yes. And the last pillar, I would say, is something that I know many recruiters can relate to. It's what I would call outreach. And
Okay.
why I save this one for last is because I don't believe it's where you should start. Because if you do a good job with your job advertising, you have candidates already applying. If you do a good job with building, right? Because this is not, when you do targeted advertising, it's not about being transactional with jobs. It's about building talent pipelines. You
Mm,
want to have pipelines of talent, right? It's you get more bang for your buck when you use targeted advertising to build pipelines and generate leads rather than trying to do the one-to-one transactional. Because if you have a talent pipeline, when it comes time to do outreach, hopefully you already have a good pool of candidates that you can pull from. Candidates maybe that you didn't place already, people that are already in your CRM.
yeah.
Look for what you already have in your talent pool. But if you don't have it and you need to reach out, this is where recruiters spend a lot of time. You're on LinkedIn, you're on Indeed's resume database, you are looking for the person, right? That
Yeah.
you very much hunting when you're doing outreach. You're looking for them, and now you're trying to bring them into a process, right? You got to send them an email, send them a text, send them a LinkedIn message, and now you're waiting for them to respond. And now you got them in the response, and now you're going to text, and you're going to email, and you're going to make a phone call, and maybe they'll join a Zoom. Like, there's a whole process that you have to go
Yeah.
through to ultimately see if you can even get an interview or make an offer. Look at that. That whole pillar there is very important because it's experience, it's
Yeah.
process. And if you don't have good experience and process, right, candidate and recruiter together, designed in that pillar, then you'll have a bad experience. You'll waste a ton of money. You'll waste a ton of time. You'll churn talent and you'll churn recruiters,
You will.
because this is about process design. It is less about what database do I buy, and it is more about how do I design a process that allows my team to efficiently go out and leverage all the information that's out there on the internet, but bring people effectively into it that saves time and money. That is all process and experience design.
It's
So,
true. And it's true. And 2 points I want to add on that that I think are really important is when you're thinking about this, if you're trying to solve that problem, how do I get more and better candidates? A lot of pipelines leak, and your people will leak out of the pipeline at different stages depending on the experience that they're going through. So you really should evaluate your process to see where am I losing people, or where do I have a leaky pipeline in a sense. And then the second piece that is really, really important, and I heard this from my friend Risha, the CEO of Aviante, that's so adamant about this. You need to walk in the shoes of talent, right? So don't look at your process and compare it to other processes. Look at your process and compare it to the experience that your candidate is going to have to go through to get the job that's on the other side of it. And then ask yourself, would I go through this process for the job that I'm offering? And really evaluate it. And that's a big takeaway that I have with other agencies is, if you've not actually gone through your process lately to see what it's like, go do that. You'll be in awe of what you might find and how to improve pillar 4 here, right? You've probably worked with agencies that have kind of gone through that project, right, Julie?
oh, yes. I'll tell you, there are many businesses I've walked in and I said, can you show me a map of your user experience through, your hiring and your, your acquisition process here? And they said, no, but I can show you my recruiter one. That's because you're looking at the experience that your recruiter needs to do to get somebody from point A to point B. But what you're not doing is creating the parallel to that to say, well, what does that mean? I'm asking a recruiter, right? Because we get stuck in the world of the things that we have to do, but we have a reason, right? I had to ask for your email address 3 times because you had to pass through 3 pieces of technology.
Yeah.
But on the other side, the candidate's like, why did you ask me for the same information 3 times? This feels weird to me. I'm out.
That's right.
Oh, think about it. When you put that hat on and you look from the other side, you're like, oh, this is ridiculous. How can we make this easier? And those small changes, like if you can improve something a couple of points, you can save a lot of money and a lot of people.
It's so true. And it goes back to the reason that your people are doing this. Partly, they might be comparing your onboarding process to another agency or another employer, but it's not just that. It's Amazon, where most e-commerce happens, or even Walmart or Target nowadays, right? But like you can literally find something and with 2 clicks have purchased it on Amazon and it will be at your door in some locations 4 hours later, right? So that's how easy it is. And it's like, hey, do you want to just add this to your cart and keep shopping, or do you just want to buy it now, right? And it's just one slide and it's done. That's what consumers, that's what people are getting used to in their everyday life. And when they face a onboarding process that was typical 4 years ago, and it's different than that, if it's not as efficient and it's not as clean and easy, it becomes inconvenient. They're out. Your pipeline's going to leak and you're going to lose those candidates.
Yes. I mean, the truth is like, that's where all the savings is probably living for a business right now. Is you don't need to increase your budget. You need to go pay attention to where you're spilling it out of you have a bucket and it's probably leaking. Go fix that first.
Yeah.
Before you grow everything else and invest in it. And then it turns into a cycle, right? Because then you learn from that and you say, okay, well, how can I tell better stories through this process? And you go back to your brand, and then that impacts the job descriptions that you're putting out. So you get better improvement on the advertising and the candidates that are coming in. So the money you're spending on your job advertising is improved through the process funnel. And then that lets you figure out where you're missing talent, where the gaps are. And that's where you go and invest in the targeted advertising. And then it comes back into the process. How can I improve this process for that audience? And it's a continuous loop. I mean, it is all centered around data. You do need information to know what's working, not working. Don't use nice steak dinners or nice swag that people are sending you to make your decisions on where you want to invest your money. That's not going to work. Make sure you get real information that's telling you what's working and not working.
So that's true. So that was an amazing imagery that you shared at the end about how these things work together. So it's almost, while I like the concept of 4 pillars because it holds up the strategy, but really it's almost like 4 strands of line that are being woven together to create a strong rope, right? Like that's really that they weave together. And I like that. So I've got a question about all of this because this is something I think is incredibly important and I feel like it could fit in multiple pillars, but I'd like your opinion. What about reputation management? What about the reviews on Glassdoor or Google or Facebook or things like that, where they're telling their story? How do you manage that? Where does that fit into the 4 pillars?
Okay, great question on that. And it has everything to do with employer brand. You can't help the dark web, right? There are places you can't see people talking about you. There are conversations that are happening out there that you don't even know that they're happening. You can't see them. So there's nothing you can do about that. But where those things come from is usually being represented in a public place.
Right.
You can see, and you can control what somebody's going to say about you on Glassdoor, but you can have influence to what the reader is going to perceive of that. You can respond to comments on Glassdoor. You can respond to comments on Facebook. People are often scared too, because you do need to have a strategy to do that. And that is never that you want to be in combat. You never want to tell somebody they're wrong or, treat someone as if what they're saying about you is invalid.
Right.
You want to respond though. You do want to respond. Take it, look at it. Is what they're saying real? If it is, don't try to pretend that it's not. Acknowledge it. For example, someone might say, oh, I tried to work with this company a year ago and I had a really difficult time. Nobody got back to me. They were really rude. The recruiter was awful. Respond. We are so sorry to hear that you had that experience. Because you are, aren't you? Tell the truth.
Absolutely.
Sorry you had that experience. We would love to know who you interacted with so we can follow up on that. Oh, you're showing accountability, right?
Yeah.
Like, people are like, bravo, look at them doing something about it. If you respond well to these things, you actually come out looking better.
Yeah.
It's actually stronger for your brand that you say, that's not an acceptable path for what we want anyone to experience. We want to follow up with you. Please send us an email to info@, we want to hear from you, right? And if you show that you have that level of concern publicly, that you're standing behind the experience that people had, you actually won somebody rather than lost them, because that one bad review with a really powerful, compassionate response can lead to 100 people seeing it and say, I see that there was a problem. Problems happen, and I know they do, but this company's standing behind their experience and their people. I love that. So that's a way to take a negative and turn it into a really powerful positive.
It's true. And there's a lot of times that a lot of people that will publicly complain like that or leave a negative review, they just want to feel heard. And if you give them an outlet to hear them and you genuinely listen and you take action to make their experience better this time around, they may go back and remove that negative review, or they may go edit that review and say, hey, after this follow-up, I want to give this company 4 stars or 5 stars or whatever, based on how they responded, and again, I think that drives your point home, is that if you respond appropriately, you can convert that. But there's one area that I want to address, is that sometimes those reviews are out of line. They are uncalled for. They cross the line because someone is super negative for whatever reason. And it happens to all agencies. You get those people, in the volumes of people we deal with, it's going to happen. One thing I've learned a long time ago that I think is an important tip. So I back Julie's response. You should respond. But if somebody does something out of line, meaning they verbally attack somebody at your company, they call somebody out by name, they say something disparaging or something like that, and it's truly an uncalled for review, one tip I would highly recommend is reaching out to the review platform and let them know that this review likely violates their guidelines, their terms and conditions for postings. And if you see something like that's truly out of line, review companies or review sites, they don't want that on their platform either. They want reviews to be honest, critical, constructive feedback to help the consumer do better, the company do better, but they don't want disparaging remarks. So a lot of times you can get the out of bounds reviews or the over the line reviews removed simply by working with the review platform. And I think that's something that can help some of us out too.
Yeah, I agree with that. If it does cross a line where it's a personal attack, or it's making like truly out there, if even in some cases aggressive or violent language,
right?
That the platforms have some social responsibility to address that. So you can,
and they do, and they act on it. I've not really seen one of those platforms that have said, "Hey, sorry." Usually they're pretty strict about their guidelines and that social responsibility and cleaning that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are definitely, if it crosses a line, that is definitely an action to take. And if they review it and they don't feel that it crosses that line and it's going to stay on your profile, then respond to it.
Absolutely.
And in some cases, if you feel that it has, you can respond with, this is not, a professional forum in a way to speak with that. I mean, you can actually be socially responsible yourself in responding. We do not condone language like that, or and that's okay. Actually, that's part of a brand to
stand on your core values. Absolutely.
Then that actually people will read that and they'll say, I agree with you. Right? Because that's the kind of people you want. You don't want to be attracting the kind of people that are into leaving those kind of comments. You want the kind of people who are saying, absolutely not, that's unacceptable. And if you stand for those values, there's your employer brand.
100%. I agree with that. So Julie, this has been amazing. The 4 pillars are strong. You're obviously an expert in this space. And for those of you out there taking notes on this, I'm sure you got a notebook full of actionable insights, things that you can go implement right away. And just remember, you don't have to do all of it. You can start with one pillar. You can start with just being more intentional on your story and the experience that you want people to have when they work with you. You can start by just identifying your target audience and your messaging. But I think the important takeaway is any of these pillars, including the reputation management piece that we talked about, can help you improve where to get more and better candidates from. So taking action here is going to be important. And this is the direction that the industry is going. So sooner or later, you're going to have to jump on this bandwagon. And I would say to do it sooner if you want the competitive advantage. And so Julie, you're an expert in this space. I know that you actually moved on from Recruitix so you can further evangelize these concepts, these strategies, and help agencies and recruiting professionals get better at this. And you've got, if those out there, if you've not been to the website recruitmentmarketing.com, like go to that. There's so much content, and it's like training level type content to help you down this path. But if people want more, if they want to pick your brain and ask questions specific to them, or maybe they want your help on some of this stuff, what is the best way for them to engage with you?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Julie Callie, Calli, on LinkedIn, recruitmentmarketing.com. You can always email info@recruitmentmarketing.com. And then we are always happy to connect with people in the space. We really are trying to celebrate and celebrate the great work that's being done in the industry to help inform others so that we can all evolve the space to improve the human experience. So I do welcome you to reach out to me. I'm happy to hear what challenges you might be facing, what things you're excited about, what questions you have. I just love the work I do, and I love connecting with people and talking about recruitment marketing.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here with us this month and helping answer that question. How do staffing professionals get more and better candidates? And until next month.
Oh, thank you for having me.